Welcome to Scary Stories. Once in a while, we get an email sent to us with a story so out there that either it's completely made up or else it's possibly too hot to handle. Even when the names are left out and locations guarded, as in the following narrative, I have to think twice or three times about running the piece. This is a really interesting story whether it's true or not, so I'm gonna try running it here for entertainment purposes only. The email writer whose work I'm basing this episode on never provided me with any evidence that this is entirely or even partially factual, and as far as I know personally, there are no intentional references or resemblances to any real persons, either living or dead. If it turns out that we are accidentally infringing on your privacy with this presentation, please contact us privately and we'll take whatever action is appropriate. Without any further ado, here's a story that I find so unnerving and frightening that I actually hope it isn't true. And the name of this one is They Made Me a Werewolf to Silence Me. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I never knew that werewolves were real until I had been forced to undergo a transformation into one. I have no choice but to become the most savage, the most murderous of creatures nearly every single night, and although I have no control while I'm the Beastman, I remember every horrific detail when I wake up as myself the following day. So although I'm not really the one committing the terrible crimes of the werewolf, I feel the same guilt as though I had chosen willingly to perform those terrible actions. And all of this happened to me because I had too big a mouth. I work in a field of science which sounds like magic when I describe it to my mother, but which has real-world practical applications. Although there are very few people alive who have the skills I possess, with those skills and years of experimentation comes a lot of knowledge too. When you're employed by unscrupulous, desperate people, all these apparent pluses turn to minuses very quickly. Yes, the more knowledge I have, the better work I can do for my bosses, but, on the other hand, the more I know about the business, the more I know about their very serious crimes and unfathomably irresponsible behavior. So you would think that being one of the 5 or 10 best in your world at something would guarantee you job security and a happy life, but in my case, you would be wrong. I'm paid well enough that I can live somewhat comfortably, but not well enough to allow me true independence. I don't own anything I discover or create. My bosses do. They've earned billions, literally billions, off of their research and development people, yet all we get is a salary. We don't get royalties when we make them money. We don't get credit for our discoveries either. One time I found out how much green our company had made off of one of my discoveries, and then I found out that we weren't going to get Christmas bonuses that year. I lost my temper. I told a few people what I really thought of them and the company, and I threatened to go somewhere else to work. That night, I woke up to men in my bedroom. They put a foul-smelling cloth over my face, and soon I was back asleep again. When I next woke up, I was locked in a cage, a jail cell. I was chained by my ankle to the wall itself, and my chain did not allow me to get to the bars of my cage. I was still dressed in my street clothes, but they were filthy. It looked like they had dragged me through the mud on the way to the jail. I felt around to see if anything on me was broken, and it didn't seem as though I were hurt in any way. I jumped up when a man began to speak outside the cell. I hadn't even heard him approaching, and so now I was startled, on top of feeling panicked. I still hadn't made the connection to my job. I had no idea what was happening until I turned and saw the man who had been talking. He seemed familiar. Where had I seen him before? I had seen him at work, but I couldn't remember what the context was. The man spoke to me about my new life. He said I was about to embark on a great new human adventure. He used all this fancy language to describe what was going to happen to me. When he paused to take a breath, I told him I didn't want a grand adventure. I wanted to be unchained and set free. He looked me in the eye and said, "See that? See that? That is the precise reason why you've been chosen to receive a brand new life." The man told me in some detail what my new life was to entail, and it all came true, every last word of it. So rather than replay this conversation, I may as well jump into what my life became from that day onward. After sundown each night, and I mean after the dusk is finished and the sky becomes truly dark, I become a different kind of a man. It's a metamorphosis that should not actually be possible. I don't think that it has much to do with the moon at all, but since I haven't been able to truly study my affliction, only to cope with it, I just can't say for certain. There are some nights when I only grow hairier but don't truly transform, yet that seems to happen on a 3-week cycle and I don't know what it's tied to at all. So, my captors injected me with some kind of a locator beacon, and on the first night that they knew I was going to transform, they sedated me, drove me to the outskirts of a town, and released me into the wild. I remember having a hard time being able to stay awake, so I laid down behind a bush, and I collapsed into unconsciousness. When I woke next, it was dark out, and I found myself transformed into something else entirely. Now more of an animal than a man, I found out bit by bit who and what I now was. Any bit of emotion now attracted my attention, and I discovered my senses so much crisper and sharper than they ever had been before. I could see better, especially in the dark. I could smell odors I had never noticed before, and somehow I seemed to know what each of these smells meant. People have told me that dogs see in black and white. This isn't really true. They just look at things more practically. Canines use their senses to glean information from their surroundings, same as humans, but all of it is combined with their cunning and used to find ways to end the lives of other smaller creatures around them. The canine needs to eat a lot of food to survive. If it doesn't have anyone buying it Alpo, it will take down prey that you would think was out of its league, just to consume that protein. You can't argue these points with me, as I've learned them from personal experience. Each night, they released me into the wild, and each morning, they used the transponder to locate me and return me to my jail cell before I woke up again. Then they would quiz me about what I had done the night before. It didn't take me long to figure out that the purpose of this was to cover my hands in blood, to remove me from my high horse, as they say. How could I act morally superior when I killed and ate living creatures the way I now regularly did? And I knew that sooner or later, it would be more than animals that I was destroying. I knew that sooner or later a human being would be hurt by me, or worse. These people would probably make it someone I cared about too, if they had their way. I begged my captors for the cure. I assumed that if they could give me this version of lycanthropy, they must have a way to cure it as well. Well, if they do, it has never been revealed to me in all these years. I told them I would do what they told me to, if they would just cure me of the werewolfism. They told me I would do what they told me to, and if I were obedient enough, they'd let me stay in the jail cell all night and not end any more innocent lives. During the pandemic, I was forced to work alone in their high-security facility. A few months ago, I was returned to the regular workforce, but I still return to my cell at night. I need to be caged up so that I don't hurt anyone else. And in order to keep my privileges of being jailed, I need to betray my personal principles daily. If your kid shows a proclivity toward working in the sciences, put a baseball bat in their hands instead. Teach them to paint. Show them how to earn a living doing something less dangerous. Otherwise, you might wake up one day to find that kid disappeared. Or worse, They might call you up and tell you over the phone that they made me a werewolf to silence me. Starting tomorrow, Tuesdays become Truesdays. You guys have been requesting more true tales, so we're going to do historical, dogman, and cryptid stories on Tuesdays. Granted, there's no guarantee that a story in a newspaper or book is necessarily more true than any of the allegedly true stories we get from you guys, but I mean, Truesdays. That's a good name, right? Anyway, we're going to try covering historical legends, newspaper articles, and other cryptid sighting reports from history. And it all starts tomorrow with a story taken from multiple newspaper articles in which a number of different witnesses had strange encounters with a tool-using, weapon-wielding, an incredibly tall character that they generally referred to as a werewolf. This cryptid was sighted multiple times over a short period, and it all happened when I was a little kid. So come back tomorrow for that very unique and apparently very real dogman or werewolf flap from the early 1970s. And now let's cut to Bigfoot with a special message about an important person. Bigfoot? Thanks, Bigfoot. Let me tell you, I can't guess who could be as cool a person as CS. Without them, we'd be decimated. Their contributions can't be equated. If you sneeze, I say God bless, and we all say thank you to CS. Please join me in thanking our superstar executive producer CS, without whom this episode would have been impossible. We give CS all our perks, but I really wish we had more to give. If you're interested in our perks too, like secret, uncensored, and much wilder episodes featuring gore, and sex, and drugs, and violence, and all sorts of things we have to be much more guarded about on this channel, then hang on, because our little buddy Henry Lee Dogman is about to fill in the deets on all that. Hank? Thanks, Biggie, and thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos, or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret, uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret, uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com, or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.